So hi guys, how are you? Hello guys, hello everyone. Okay guys, so I welcome you on the day two of this boot camp. So today what we'll be going to do? Yesterday we left some topics. So today, like there are two topics left in HTML, that is div and spam and forms. So we'll be going to cover that today. We'll be going to cover that today, and also what we'll be basically going to do. I'll be just going to give you the introduction about CSS, and I'll be just going to cover multiple topics in CSS as well. And if I just talk about tomorrow, so tomorrow what we will be basically going to do, tomorrow we will be going to discuss a project, and like some things will be left. So I'll be going to cover that things plus the project part also. Sounds good. So let me just share my screen over here, and yeah, let me just share my screen over here now. So I hope my screen is visible to all of you guys. Good evening, everybody. Hi, hello everyone. Okay. So this is like the topic that was left. So first we'll be basically going to discuss about HTML, div, and spam. So basically, if I just talk about a div, so basically div is what in HTML. The div element is used as a container for other HTML elements. All right. Div is basically nothing, but it is just a container. And guys, don't forget that you mark your attendance. The link will be in the description, guys. Over there will be like one link for all the documentation. Just go and click over there, and you just have to follow each and every step, so you will be able to mark your attendance and all right. So div is basically nothing, but it is just a container. Right now all you need to understand is div is just a container. I'll be just going to show you the code, the practical implementation. I'll be even going to show you. Okay, so all the questions that you have, just you can ask me on the later stage. All right. So what is div? Div is nothing but it is just a element. And if I just talk about this PPT, that I'll be even going to share with all of you. All right. So a div element is by default a block element, meaning that it takes all the available width and comes with the next breaks before and after. What does this thing mean? Now, so example over here, we'll be basically going to take one example, guys. Yeah. So over here, this is how we'll be basically going to write a div. Okay. Div will be there and element takes, this is just the text that we have like pasted over here. And this is how we are like closing. Okay. Now this is again a div. All right. So the div element has no required attribute. Okay. But you can style it. You can customize it with the help of class. What does this thing means? Just wait for 2 to 3 minutes. I'll be going to explain you each and everything. Okay, so over here you will be able to see the div element is often used to group sections of a web page together. So if I just click on the next slide, you will be able to see this is basically the code of the div that you will be able to see over here. That this is how it will basically going to look like. And yeah, so this is basically the code that you will be basically able to see over here, div. Now, if I just talk about a spam, so let me just do one thing. Let me just show you the code first of all. So you'll be able to know div and span dot html. So till now, all you need to understand is div is just a container. But now I'll be just going to give you more informations about div, and like you guys might was having a confusion about div and span. Okay, so each and everything I'll be just going to tell you over here. Okay, so let us just start writing the code. So over here I'll be just going to write this emit. Okay, it will just going to give me a boilerplate code over here. Now, instead of documentation, let us just write something that what I'll be basically going to do over here. Organizing, let us just say content with divs and span. This is what I'll be basically going to write over here. Now, over here, I'll be just see if I just talk about this thing, this presentation that I have basically shown you over here. So over here, they have like over here, like this is the definition of div. So over here, you will be able to see the div element has no, okay, not this one where it is. Just one second. Yeah. The div element has no required attribute, but style, class, and ID are common. Okay, what does this thing really means? So let us just try to see this thing now. So just see, I'll be over here, I'll be just going to write div. Okay, so it will like auto complete these things. This is the like advantage of using VS Code. Now over here, I'll be just going to mention one ID. ID is equal to, let us just say, over here, I'll be just going to mention the ID, guys. So ID will basically going to be header. Okay, header I'll be just going to mention. And inside this div, what I'll be basically going to do, I'll be just going to write one heading. Let us just say with H1, I'll be just going to write. So heading, I'll be just going to write, welcome guys. Okay. Now, after that, what I'll be basically going to do, I'll be again going to add one more div. Okay. So over here, I'll be just going to give it one more ID, that is main content. Right now, if you guys are like getting confused, what is this ID and all, just see guys, this ID is basically nothing. Let us just say if there are 30 students, or let us just say 5 students in a class. All right. So I basically have to call one student for some particular task. Okay. So I have to call the name of that particular person. Right. So what we'll be basically going to do over here, guys, if I have to call that particular person, all right, so at that time I basically have to call that particular name of that person. Let us just say I'll be just going to call John. Okay, so this is like that only. That's why we are giving ID over here. So if I want to change, if I want to make any kind of a changes over here in the H1, in the heading, or like in any kind of a thing, I'll be just going to call this header, and I'll be easily able to make changes over here in CSS I'm talking about. Okay. So now this div ID is like a main content that we are basically using over here. And after that, what I'll be just going to do, I'll be just going to write any kind of a paragraph. So let us just say I'll be just going to write lorem. So what is basically lorem? Lorem is nothing but it basically gives you a random text, nothing else. Okay. Now let us just try to save it and let us just try to run it. Okay. Let us just open this thing over here so I can inspect it also. Now, if I'll be just going to inspect it, just see, you guys will be able to see, just see, this welcome guys is in a one section and this is in a one section. You'll be able to see it, right? That is the same thing that what we have did over here, that this is one container and this is one container. Now let us just say if I'll be just going to remove this thing, all of these things I'll be just going to remove, and I'll be just going to write this heading, and I'll be just going to write this paragraph. Heading I'll be just going to write, and paragraph I'll be just going to write after it. And let's just save it, and let's just see this thing. Now just see this thing. It is considering all of these things in one part. That means this is a one container only. But if I have to make different containers, all right, that this in one container, let us just say, if I just talk about a kitchen, okay, what are like moms used to do, they used to basically keep sugar in one box, salt in one box, tea in one box. So similarly, the same way we are using this div. All right, if I'll be just going to refresh it, so you'll be able to see, yeah, now these are two boxes. That means two containers. One container is only having, okay, now, so this is basically your one container for the heading. This is your another container for the paragraph. All right. So this is basically a div, guys. Now, if I just talk about a span, what is basically, just see one thing also, guys. Over here, have I added any kind of a this thing BR? BR we have discussed in the last session, right? So we haven't added BR, but still it is basically showing me this content in the next line. How? Why it is basically doing this? Because whenever you will be going to store it in one container, it maintains some space. It add an extra line from its own. Okay. Yeah. Now, so after that, what we'll be basically going to do, I'll be just going to show you about the span. Let us just say again, I'll be just going to write a paragraph over here. Lorem I'll be going to write over here. And after that, what I'll be going to do, I'll be just going to call in between span, I'll be going to call. So let's just say this thing I'll be basically going to write. And I'll be just even going to highlight it little bit. So the thing that I'll be going to write over here, I don't want that you guys focus on these things because this is the CSS part that I'll be going to write over here. Okay, I'll be going to explain you these things, but this thing I'm just showing you for the explanation purpose. All right. So this is like going to be color. I'll be going to use, let us just say blue. I'll be going to use over here. Okay, and let us just save it and let us just see how it is looking like. So just see this thing now, guys. You'll be able to see this thing. So this is what, okay, span we use just for to focus on some lines, but div we use to store a particular thing in a container. Okay, if you want to store, let us just say a heading, you want to store a particular paragraph, and after that another paragraph you have, let us just say you are explaining something. I'm explaining about HTML, and after that I am explaining about CSS. So on a website, if I'm basically writing a blog, so I'll be going to create two div. In one div, I'll be just going to contain all the HTML part that I'll be going to explain over there on the blog. And the second thing, I'll be going to create another div, and in that another div, I'll be going to store each and everything related to CSS. So that is a div, a container. And spam is what? If I want to highlight a particular line or something, okay, at that time we'll be going to use span. Now, if I'll be just going to give you more information about a span and a this thing div, okay, so let us just try to discuss that also over here. Let us just try to discuss that also. So div and span we can like classify as blocks versus inline. Okay, the div element is a block level container. It typically starts on a new line and takes up the full width available. That means you will be able to see, just see this thing. Okay, it will be going to take this thing, whole thing. But if I just talk about this one span, it has only taken some space of that particular line on. Okay, this is a span. It is showing you. Okay, so that is basically your div and span. Okay. If I just talk about a span, so it is nothing but it is an inline container. This is just a technical words that we are using over here. It is nothing but an inline container. It does not start on a new line and only takes up as much width as necessary. That means it will not going to consume all the width. You will be able to see if I just talk about this div, it took all this thing, all the portion of it. But span is just taking a minimum line. That is like necessary. Okay. So for the large elements, I can basically say large blocks, we use div and we use a span, like it is used for inline styling or grouping without affecting the layout significantly. Okay. Okay. Nice. Now let's just move forward. So this was it about the div and span. There is like no rocket science in it. That we'll be basically going to talk about it more. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Now, so this was your div and element. Now, we'll be going to talk about HTML forms. All right. You let us just say you might have gone if you are applying for an interview or something. Okay. If you'll be just going to applying for an interview, at that time, companies used to basically provide a form. Let us just say you are applying on a Naukri. Let us just say you are applying on LinkedIn. So at that time, what basically happens, guys, that they basically used to ask you, okay, what is your current package? What is your expected package? How many, like, what are your skills on what kind of a technology you are working with? Okay, this thing like they'll be basically going to ask. So at that time, that thing basically works with the help of forms only. Okay, so that is basically your HTML forms. Now, just see, there are some unique things about, I can basically say, okay, now, just see this one thing, guys. If you are filling any kind of a form on Google, you might have seen, if you'll be just going to write a password over there. So at that time, you will be basically going to see stars, stars. Okay, that basically happens with the help of HTML only. So no one, if you are like filling a form and someone is basically sitting aside you, so they will be not able to see your password. So that's why it always shows star and star. So that thing, okay, all of these things will be going to include over here in the HTML forms. Okay, now, so this is how your HTML forms will look like this username and this thing code. I'll be even going to show you over here. So let's just start it. Now, if I just talk about, just see, like username will be there. So John is written, last name Doe is basically written. So how we'll be going to create it? That we'll be going to understand. So if I just talk about elements in forms, the input elements, or I can basically say multiple elements. So the HTML input element is the most used for elements. Okay, and input element can be displayed in many ways depending on the type attribute. Let us just say input type is button. What does this thing mean? Let us just say our input type is checkbox. Let us just say our input type is color. Let us just say our input type is date. What does this thing means? Over here, all the things that you will be able to see, these are basically nothing but these are the different types of input that we'll be going to use in HTML. Whenever you will be going to create a form, at that time we'll be going to use these type of inputs. Okay, are we guys clear till now? Are we guys clear till now? Can I get a confirmation, guys? Yes or no? Okay, thank you guys. Okay, now let's just click on the next this thing. So text field is basically there, right? First we are talking about a text field. So let us just say, how will it look like? Let us just say this is the code for you. How you will be going to create forms? This with the help of this form tag that you will be able to see over here. Okay, this form tag. Inside this, we have label. We'll be going to understand what this label is. But right now we are understanding about input type is equal to text. What does this thing means? Okay, over here you will be able to see type text in the code. Okay, this thing you will be able to see that type is equal to text, type is equal to text. All right, so text basically means, guys, first just see this thing. Label we have, Now, for what we are doing, F name, that is your first name. So first name is being written over here. And this is the thing that you will be able to see on site. This is how the HTML code above will display in a browser. That first name will be there. And after that, this blank box where you can basically write your first name. Similarly, over here in the code, we have written label for L name and last name. So last name you will be able to see over here. So this thing will going to give you a clear understanding that inside this box, what you will be going to mention or what you will be going to write. Okay. So that is basically your text field. Whenever you want to fill a text inside it, you will be just going to write text over here. Now, label we have seen. What is this label? Okay, let us just try to understand about this label. So the label element, okay, over here, or like they are saying, notice the use of the label elements in the example above. The label text defines a label for many form elements. Like the same I have told you. Okay, label will just going to show you like HTML is there, CSS is there in the code if you'll be just going to see. So why this label is like important? So over there they have mentioned the label element is useful for screen reader users. Like whenever you will be going to fill something, obviously you need to understand it, right? That's why they have mentioned it. And after that, they have shown one radio button. How does this radio button look like? It look like this. That you will be able to see over here. It look like this. Radio button, like there are some this thing over here with respect to radio button that if you'll be able to see HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All right. So any out of these three, you can only click one. That is the radio button. Okay, where we can like use it. Let us just in the gender. If you'll be going to fill a form. Okay. So over there, what you will be basically going to do, guys. If HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is basically there, or if you're filling a form and they have mentioned a gender over there. So out of a female, male, you basically have to select one. So this is basically a radio button, guys. And how do we code it? Just see. Over here, there is the code. You just have to write form. If you have to create a form, you have to use this form. Input type radio. You just have to mention type radio. Now from where this type radio is coming? Okay. Just see one thing. Just see this thing. All of these things that I have shown you, type radio. Okay. Now we'll be even going to understand one thing also, right? Checkbox. So checkbox is also there. These are the all possible this thing that I have already written for you. So in the future, you guys like can go through it if you are like stuck somewhere or something, right? So you just have to write type is equal to radio, nothing else. Like this. Okay, again a type radio CSS. Over here we have mentioned HTML, CSS, and then type radio ID is equal to JavaScript. And this is how it will going to look like on website. Now after that we have checkbox. Okay, we have checkbox now. What is basically a checkbox? How does it look like? So checkbox, the input type checkbox defines a checkbox. Checkbox let a user select 0 or more option. That means it is not like a radio button. You can select multiple checkbox and it will going to look like this. Okay. Now, how do we code this thing? Code I'll be even going to show you over here. The things that you will be able to see. These are just a demo thing that I have shown you over here. So form is basically there. You can just write type is equal to checkbox and you will be easily able to create a checkbox. All right. Now, the name attribute for input. Now, over here, there will be like the same thing that you was basically asking me that notice that each input field must have a name attribute to be submitted. If the name attribute is omitted, the value of the input field will not be sent at all. Okay, this is what they are saying. The value will not stand because if you're filling it, if you're pressing on that submit button after that form, on this submit button, right? This data is going somewhere. If you are applying for a company, this data is going to that company's HR. All right. So if that is not there, you will be not able to send it. Now you will be able to see over here what we have did. Label is equal to for F name, first name, right? Type is equal to text, ID F name, value John, value submit. Okay, what is this value also? We'll be going to discuss about it. Okay, now there is one thing also the action attribute. The action attribute defines the action to be performed when the form is submitted. Usually, the form data is sent to a file on the server, the same thing that I was explaining you, when the user click on that submit button. In the example below, the form data is sent to a file called actionpage.php. Over here, we are sending the data. This is nothing, but you can consider it another site. Okay. Now, so over here, we are sending this data. All the things that we are like filling, we are just sending it over here. That is the action attribute. Now we have the target attribute also. Okay, that I'll be just going to show you. So this is basically a target attribute. You'll be able to see over here also whether it is no. Aside from this like action, there will be a target attribute also. So a target attribute specify where to display the response that is received after submitting the form. What does this thing mean? Let us just say if I am basically on some website, right? Python I'm basically opening over here. Now, if this is there, try it yourself. If I want to open it in a new window, okay, open link in new tab. So this response is getting open in a new tab. All right. This response is basically getting open on a opening in a new tab. So over here, the same thing they are saying that target attribute is specified where to display the response. So if you'll be going to mention underscore blank, the response is displayed in a new window or tab like this. Like this. Okay. All right, guys. This is what it now. Okay, so blank, if you'll be going to use, the response is displayed in a new window or tab. If you'll be going to use underscore self, the response is displayed in a current window. Similarly, for all of these last three. Okay, so this is like your target attribute that we was like discussing about here. After that, we have the method attribute. So you can like skip it for now, the method one. Now, after that, we have like the HTML form selection, the input element we basically have over here. These are the like elements over here. Input, label, select, text area, button, field, multiple things are basically there. So let us just do one thing. First, let us just start the code with respect to the forms. And after that, what we'll be basically going to do, after that, I'll be just going to walk through all the rest of parts with respect to the form. Okay. Sounds good? Because I think you guys right now have got a little bit information about the forms. What the forms are basically. All right. So Okay, guys. Okay. So let's just start this thing. So what I'll be basically going to side by side, I'll be even going to show you. Okay, this is basically my this thing. So over here, let's just write. I'll be just going to do. Let's just first add a heading that what we are basically doing. So over here, we are doing nothing but a user registration form. User registration form. This is what we are like building. If I'll be just going to execute it, sorry, like this. So right now we have written this thing only user registration form. And after that, what we'll be basically going to do, we'll be just going to directly create a forms. So form we'll be basically going to create over here like this. And after that, over here, let's just write action. If you want to write action, we have seen that all the things that we'll be going to write over here, or all the things that we'll be going to save over here, mention over here, right? So that will going to save somewhere. In the initial stage, we have discussed about in the first class HTML, CSS, and there is something also known as database. So all the data that you are filling over here, that will going to save on some database. Okay. Now, after that, let's just say we'll be just going to write label. Same thing that we have seen what labels are. All right. So over here, I'll be just going to write for what? For full name. For full name. And after that, ID will be there. Let's just say I'll be just going to mention a ID. ID is again going to be full name. I'll be just going to give a ID. And after that, name. I'll be just going to give it. That is going to be again a full name that I'm looking for. All right. Now, placeholder we'll be just going to write over here some kind of a place holder. So over here you'll be going to get a message. Enter your full name. Enter your full name. Okay. Now there's one thing also that I'll be just going to write, that is required. Okay, required only. Now, what is this thing require? Over here, I have even explained the required. Okay, let me just show you that. If I have not mentioned over here, for sure I'll be going to explain you. But I think I have mentioned it over here. Okay, no. So what this basically require is going to do that if you will be just going to, like, you cannot leave it blank. If you'll be able to see this portion, you have to fill it. So that is what a require is doing over here. Now after that, what we'll be going to do. So let us just see our site, that what is the progress that we have did over here. Okay, so nothing, because you have just added a this thing over here. Forms again, if you'll be just going to do a live over, nothing you will be able to see. So when you'll be basically going to say now, just see this thing now. Again, we'll be going to write an input. You have just added a label without an input. Okay, input will be there. So what you'll be going to write over here, the type will going to be text. That means text will have to write 1 2 3 ABC like this. Right now, I have just mentioned the difference between this thing, ID and the name, if you forgot. Okay. So let us just do the coding over here. Please pay attention, guys, in the class, because like I have to cover multiple things. I cannot like repeat, like if I'll be just going to repeat, I'll be not able to cover the syllabus, and that will be not good for all of you, right? So the same thing that I have basically told you, that if I just talk about the ID, so the purpose of the ID is just to use it uniquely in HTML. And if I just talk about the name attribute is used to give a name to a form for form control, nothing else. Okay. Now, so what we'll be basically going to do now. Okay. So type will be just going to write text, and ID I'll be basically going to write. This is again going to be full name. Multiple things I have basically added over here. I should have like added this one over here. Yeah, like this is like full name for full name, and over here we'll be just going to write full name. Really sorry, guys. Now, input will be basically going to write, that will be going to be type is equal to text, ID is basically going to be full name, and name is going to be again full name. Okay, and after that placeholder will be basically going to write over here. Now what this placeholder is okay, uh, enter your full name. Okay, and over here it is going to be required. Now this is one thing, if I'll be just going to save it and if I'll be just going to run it, so you'll be able to see this thing. What this placeholder is, guys, just see, you'll be able to see enter your full name, right? So you'll be able to see this thing over here. If I'll be just going to write my name over here, this watermark will like going to disappear. Okay, now let's just continue this class. So this is basically the form that I have basically added over here. And after that, let us just say in the form, I'll be even going to add multiple things. What is basically that going to be? Let's just say label I'll be going to add over here. And let us just say label for what I'll be just going to add for email. Let us just say for email. And over here, I'll be just going to write email over here. Okay. Okay. One thing you basically have to understand, even though if chat GPT is there, right, you have to learn these things. Because if you think chat GPT can do all of these things, trust me, if you'll be going to ask any kind of a question related to a real life, the code that you'll be going to give it or the code that you are expecting from it, it will not going to give you 100% accurate result. Okay, you should know how the code is working before you will be going to ask anything to chat GPT. You should know how the code is working. If you don't know, even chat GPT cannot do anything at that time. But just wait for 10 to 15 minutes, and after that we'll be like, I'll be going to cover multiple things like flexbox, and multiple things we'll be going to cover CSS grids. Multiple things we'll be going to cover in today's lecture only, so you don't have to worry about that. So label, and let us just say if I'll be just going to write a input for it, input I'll be basically going to write, so let us just say a type I'll be just going to mention over here. So the type is basically going to be email, and after that we'll be going to do ID is equal to email, right? And name, that is again going to be email, and after that placeholder we'll be going to write placeholder. So please, or I can basically write enter your email. Okay, and if I just show you, just see, you'll be able to, okay, placeholder right now it is basically not showing. Okay, 1 second, really sorry, guys. Now you'll be able to see enter your email. And at the end, what we can basically do after the like doing all of these things, we can add multiple things. Okay, we can basically add multiple things. If I'll be just going to show you the whole code, just give me 1 second. I have basically prepared it also. Hmm, uh, yeah, just see, this is basically the whole code that I have basically prepared for all of you. So this is how at the end it will basically going to look like. Okay. So let's just try to understand it. That we have what we have basically added. That this is basically your email password we have added, like label for password. Password you will be able to see over here. That this is basically your password. This word. All right. Now over here you will be able to see that placeholder I have added. Please enter your password, and after that we have even added some this thing radio buttons, like what is your gender, male, female, or other. So you'll be able to see at one time I can click on one only. So that is the this thing of radio button. And after that we have what we have basically added. We have added one checkbox over here where we'll be like going to check that I agree to all the terms and conditions. Okay. Now these are basically your labels that we have added over here, the checkbox, and at the end we have added a button. What is this button? This button is basically your this submit button that you will be able to see over here. Okay. So this is nothing, but you just have to write button, type submit, and submit, and you will be able to create this submit button. So I can basically write multiple things over here. Okay, let us just say password. I'll be just going to write. It will like going to suggest me this thing also. So anything I'll be basically going to write. Okay. And after that, I'll be just simply going to submit. This is how this will going to work, guys. Okay. Now, if I just show you, just see this thing. Action attribute we have discussed, the input attribute we have discussed, like for f name, first name, type is equal to text, id is equal to f name, name, right? Now we basically have a select element also. What is a select element? Just see. Over here in the label, you just have to write, let's just say for car, you are doing it, choose a car, and in select, you have mentioned ID is equal to car, name is equal to cars. And after that, you have option is equal to value Volvo. Saab is basically there, Fiat is there, and Audi is basically there. So whenever you will be going to execute this code, you will be going to get an option like this. Choose a car. And if you'll be just going to click on it, you will be able to see all of these options. And then you basically have to submit it. So that is basically your select element. Yeah, ritual calendar is also there. Don't worry. Calendar is also there. Just wait for it. Okay. Now, after that, we have field set and legends. What does this basically means? Like, if you are asking for a like personal information, so you can basically set a legend like this. So you will be able to see it over here. Okay. So that is your field set and legends. Now, we have data list like this. Previously, we have seen something else, but now this is a data list. It will going to appear it like this. All right. And how do we call it? Just by calling data list, and you just have to mention values inside it. You'll be easily able to call it. Okay. Now you can similarly, you can even do types like a button is there, checkbox is there, color is there, date is there, calendar you was asking, right? Date time is basically there. Week is basically there. Multiple things are basically there. Okay. Now, so let us just talk about some important things now that are basically left over here. Okay, date is basically there. You was asking about the date, right? So if you want to add a date, you can basically add it like this. Okay. How you can basically add it? Just see, all you have to do is you just have to call input type is equal to date, nothing else. And over here, you can even mention what can be the minimum date and what can be the maximum date. Let us just say you are providing something and it has an expire date. So you can only allow those people who have a specific date of birth or something else. All right. So that is basically your date is. And after that, we have date field, like date field registration. This is the same thing that we have seen. All right. Similarly, you can do for the images if you want to add an image over here in the input, if you want to like provide an image. Okay. So that you can basically do over here. So all of this PDF and all, I'll be just going to provide you. Let us just say if you basically want to create, this is again an input restrictions that you can provide. Let us just say if you are writing a age, so I want to set an age limit between 0 to 25. And if someone is like 26-year-old, or if someone is like going to write 27, 28, that will be not allowed. So how will you used to do that? That we used to do with the help of input restrictions. Checked is there, like this thing, max length, min, pattern, multiple things are there. So let us just say you are basically creating a number. All right. So over here you are mentioning min is 0, max is 100, and step is 10, and value is 30. What does this thing means? That means 10 by 10 step you will be able to select 0, 10, 20, 30, 10 steps. At one time you will be going to select 10. And after that, value is 30. What is this value? Okay, you'll be able to see all the things that we'll be going to write on that value. Initially, you'll be able to see it over here. A default value I can basically see. Okay. Now again, for a range field, if you want to create a range like this, you can do it. Okay. So this is like multiple things are also basically there, guys. The input size, if you want to increase the length of it. So the input size attribute is basically there. This is the attribute size that you will be able to see, that you can basically use. Placeholder is basically there. I have already explained you. Placeholder is what? Placeholder works like a watermark only. But if I just talk about value, you can even do that. Okay. Value if you'll be just going to add, that will be the by default value over there. Okay. So guys, do you have any kind of a confusion till now? Because like this is it for the this thing, HTML part. Now we'll be just going to discuss about CSS. Are we guys clear till now? Okay. Calculator, if you basically want to add, you can like do it, but you gonna need basically JavaScript for it. Okay. I'll be just going to show you because some specific things only I want to mention over here. Let me just show you that pattern one also. If you'll be just going to, let me just clearly show you the code over here. Okay, so over here. Where do we have this? Just see, this is basically your pattern. Now, what pattern basically means? This is nothing but this is a regex. Let us just say from a capital A to capital Z and small a to small z. If I'll be just going to write over here 0 to 9. Okay, let us just say over here we have mentioned only 3. So till like 3 only you will be going to write it. Okay, so that is basically your pattern is. Let us just say if I'll be just going to write 0 to 9 over here. So that is basically nothing but you basically have to write these things in 0 to 9. That is the pattern. That is nothing but a reg. Okay. So let's just start a discussion with respect to the CSS. Okay. So this is like it about the HTML. Now, what is basically this CSS? CSS will be going to understand about. So CSS basically stands for cascading style sheets. Okay. CSS basically describe how HTML elements are to be displayed on a screen, paper, or in a other media. If you want to add a style in your text, let us just say if there is a text and you want to convert it into a red color, maybe you want to give it to a stylish font, let us just say Italian or like something else. So at that time, you will be basically going to use CSS. Okay. And if I just talk about a CSS syntax, so this is how it basically look like. H1 is basically stands for our heading. So that is selector. Okay. Now this is known as declaration. This is your property, this is your value, this is your property, this is your value. So you just have to give, okay, color that I want, that should be blue, and font size that I basically want, that should be 12 pixel. All right. Because in web, what we used to do, all the things that we are basically measuring over here, that should be in pixels. So color blue should be there, and font size that should be 12 pixels. That means in website, whenever we want to compare something, we used to compare it with the pixels. If I just talk about your mobile screen, if I just talk about your this thing, laptop screen, this also have in some kind of a pixels only. There is a pixel limit. Now, after that, we basically have one thing. Okay, if you'll be just going to write a CSS, how you can basically link CSS to HTML. So you basically have to create two files first of all. First should be index.html and the second one should be style.css. Okay. Now, what we basically have to do is the PDF that I have made for you. I'll be just going to provide you this PDF. So you basically have to create two files. The first one is the index.html because this is not a PDF that is available on internet, but I have made it. So I can share it. Over there in the link only, I'll be going to give you the this thing link of it. After the session, I'll be going to provide this to the Let's Upgrade team, and after that, you'll be able to download it from that one attendance link. Okay. So creating two file index.html and styles.css. So what we basically have to do, let me just show you how we can link this CSS. Okay. So you'll be able to see that I have this one that is your index.html, right? So over here, what we are basically doing over here, I have added this one. Under the title, I have just added link rel. That means what should be the like, how will be, what is the relationship of this thing? So that is nothing but that is the style sheet. How you'll be going to relate it. Type, text, and CSS. Text, CSS, right? And href. Over here, in the same folder, I have even created style.css. So let us just try to minimize the things over here. So you'll be easily able to understand. Let us just say in the color, what I basically want to do in the H1 heading, I just want to add this color. All right. So I have basically created one. Let's just do one thing. Let's just create another sheet. So over there, what I'll be just going to write is style underscore one dot CSS. This is what I'll be just going to do. And over here, I'll be just going to write that if I have this heading is basically there. If I'll be just going to comment this line and if I'll be just going to show you this thing, index.html that I'll be just going to run. So it will going to look like this without the CSS. So if you, I'll be just going to comment this thing, you'll be able to see this is how the CSS will going to look like. But what we'll be basically going to do in the H1 heading, if I basically have to add a style over here in the H1 heading, I want that, okay, I want to convert it into red color. Okay, I want to convert it into red color. So what I'll be basically going to do, I'll be simply going to use color over here. Okay, so color I'll be going to use, and I'll be just going to write red over here. And if I'll be just going to save it, now this is my basically style.css, and I basically have to link it to this HTML. Okay, so what I'll be just going to do, I'll be just going to provide the path of it like this. And if I'll be again going to execute it, you will be able to see that I have converted this thing into a red color. Okay, so that is basically your this thing, a style that we have basically added over here. So this is the way that how you can basically add a style over here. Now over here I have already written a code for all of you guys. So if I have to link this sheet to this HTML page, all the things that I have basically written over here. So what we'll be going to do, I'll be just going to pass the path of this thing styles.css in this HTML. And if I'll be just going to save it, you'll be basically able to see that this is a style that we have added on our page. Now let's just try to understand what kind of a style we have basically added over here. So let's just say H1 heading. The H1 heading that we basically have over here, what we have did over here, we have mentioned the color, and we have mentioned, okay, the font size that I basically want over here, that should be in 28 pixels. Okay, font family is there. So two type of font basically I have mentioned over here. After that, I have mentioned text alignment, that should be like center. There are like multiple values with respect to this property. So the one value is center. What are the rest of the values that I'll be even going to show you? All right. So this is basically your heading, and these are basically your styles that we have added over here. You'll be able to see, okay, this is basically the text, and we have like mentioned a underline over here. Okay, that we can even do with the help of HTML that I have shown you in the yesterday session. All right, over here you will be able to see this line we have converted into italic. How we basically did it? Let us just try to understand this thing. So if I just show you over here, yeah, this paragraph over here we have like mentioned a class italic. So previously also we was like mentioning ID and class. So over here now we will be going to use it. Like class is equal to italic will be there. And what we basically have to do, we are going to call this italic class, and over here I'll be just going to mention wherever this class is, I just want to mention font style to italic. So wherever, if I'll be just going to give italic over here also, all right, it will even going to convert this thing into the italic one. Okay. So this is how like you can basically add a class over here. This is how you can basically add a style with your HTML. So let us just try to understand the basics of it. Okay. Now after that, what we'll be basically going to do, this is how we have basically seen that how we can basically link CSS to HTML. First, we basically have to create two files, that is index.html. The second one is style.css. Okay. Now style.css we basically have over here. So this is the style sheet that we have created, and we have just mentioned this thing by mentioning the link over here. All right. Now let's just talk about styling text and fonts. If you basically have any kind of a text on your website, and if you like want to convert it into a styling text or maybe into a font, how you can basically do it? Just see this thing over there. We have like multiple this thing, properties. Okay, let's just say if you want to add text color over there, so what you can basically do, what we have basically did over here, you'll be easily able to see that there was a heading. Okay, heading was there, h1, and what we have basically did, that we have just mentioned color is equal to blue over here. Okay, so this is what you can do. This is nothing but a color property we can use, and inside this thing we can add multiple values, a color name like red, and all the like color that you will be able to see in real life, that will be in RGB, that is red, green and blue. Okay, so these colors, if you want to add like different kind of color, if you want to add yellow or something else, you can just type it and it will just going to give you this thing also over here. So with the help of this thing, you can like select any kind of a color and you can just give your text that same color. Okay, now, so let us just move to the next slide. Now guys, let us just talk about text color and background colors. You might have seen, if you will be just going on any kind of a blog or any kind of a site, they're like a background colors, like this is the background color black, this is the background color blue. Okay, so text color and background color are basically there. So if we basically have to set a text color, background color, or maybe a text color, how we can basically do it? In place of color, like we have written a color property, we even have a property named background color. Over there, you can just name it that color. You can basically mention it over here, and you'll be easily able to convert your text into that color. Okay, that is your color properties, text colors, and background colors over here. All right, now let's just move forward. This is the like styling text that we basically have over here. Background color I haven't mentioned over here, but if you want, you can even mention a background color over here. Okay, so now, so we even have in CSS, we even have this function that CSS text alignment direction properties. Like let us just say if you are writing anything on your site, whether you want to be in center, okay, whether you want that text on your left, whether you want that text on your right, okay, so that thing you can even do it with the help of text align property. What you basically have to do is you just have to provide a center over there. Okay, if I'll be just going to show you that if this is basically the code, okay, Italian over here, I'll be just basically going to write test align, and let this is center I'll be just going to do. And if I'll be just going to show you this code, just 1 second. I think I have saved it. Okay, so you'll be able to see this text is basically in a center. Okay, so that is basically your test align properties. That you can like center it, you can like align it in the center, you can even align it in the left, you can even align it in the right. Okay, now similarly you will be able to see that this was basically my code, that h1 heading was there, so I have aligned it in the center, then h2 left, then right. So this is how it will basically going to look like on your side. That's h1 heading is basically in the center, h2 is basically in the left, then we have h3 that is in the right. Okay, so these are the above heading that you will be basically able to see over here. Okay, now let's just move forward. So over here you will be able to see the next thing that we basically have is the text align last property. This thing that you basically have seen, text align last right, that means the last line that you have. Whether you want to align it from the right, whether you want to align it from the left, or whether you want to align it from like a space. So justify you to write if you want a space between all of the words that you are basically having in a paragraph. Okay. And after that, we have text decoration properties. If you want to decorate your text, if you want to like make it in a bold, make it in a solid, make it in a dotted line, if you want to increase the thickness of the text, if you want to reduce the thickness of the text, at that time you can basically use text decoration properties. Okay, and how we'll be basically going to use it? Let us just say if you have any kind of a heading, right? And at that time you'll be going to do text decoration line is equal to overline. That means you'll be able to see this text that we have written in a H1. And if you'll be just going to mention overline, so you'll be able to see overline over there. Okay. And if you'll be just going to mention text decoration line through. Okay. So you'll be going to see a line through that particular text. And text decoration line is basically there. If we have mentioned underline, you'll be able to see underline. Similarly, with respect to the last one. All right. Now, if you want to specify a color with respect to the decoration line, you can even do that. Like overline, you can mention red, you can mention that red, I basically want this line. This line, I basically want blue. This underline, I basically want green. So that you can even do over here. All right. Now, if I just talk about again, this is all of these things are basically a decoration purpose, for the decoration purpose. I'll be just going to share this PPT with all of you so you guys basically can access it. Okay. Now, the next topic that comes inside text decoration is text transformation. If you want to convert any kind of a text, let us just say I have written something in basically small text. Okay, paragraph is there. P dot uppercase I have basically mentioned. And I basically have to do uppercase of that particular text because you will be able to see this text is transformed to uppercase. So with the help of uppercase, what you can do, if there are small letters and capital letters in your text, so you can like completely convert it into uppercase with the help of uppercase, lowercase, and capitalize. Capitalize is basically what? The first letter of each and every word will going to be capitalized, and each and every word will be in the lower cases. Now, after that, we basically have CSS text spacing properties. Okay, we basically have CSS text spacing properties. If you basically want to mention some kind of a space over here, okay, let us just say letter spacing you basically want, line height you basically want, text indent you basically want, white space you basically want, on word space you basically want. So how you can basically do it? Let's just say I have some examples over here. Text indentation. Okay, so the text indent property is used to specify the indentation of the first line of a text. Let us just say text indent is basically that is your 50 pixels we are like mentioning. And over here in the letter spacing, what we have did, H1 is basically there. So we have mentioned letter spaces should be in the spaces of 5 pixels. And H2 heading, what we have mentioned, -2 pixels. So how this will going to look like? This will going to look like this, guys. Okay. Over here, you was using 50 pixels. So it will going to cover the things in 50 pixels. And what you have basically mentioned over here you have mentioned in the 5 pixels, the H1 heading. So this is how it will going to look like. Each and every word we're going to have a 5 pixels of gap. And if I just talk about -2 pixels if we have written, so text will going to overwrite itself like this. Okay. Now, what we'll be basically going to do, guys, just see. The next topic is CSS web fonts. You might have seen that if you'll be going to go on some kind of a site, there will be like different fonts. If you want to work with respect to some kind of a custom font, what you can basically do at that time, you can download that particular font and you can directly implement that in your CSS sheet. So these are the different type of formats that you will be able to see with the help of version also I have basically mentioned over here. Okay, if I just talk about TTF or OTF, okay, so this is the version of Chrome that basically support it. Okay, now if I just talk about the latest one, it basically even support WOFF21 Safari. Like this is the version you're gonna need if you're gonna use this kind of a font format. So these are the different font format that you can basically use over here. Now what are these font formats? Okay, let us just try to understand this thing also. Okay, so what kind of a fonts are basically there? Okay. Sorry, just 1 second, guys. Okay, now just see. What are these, like how these fonts basically look like? Let us just say P1 is there. That is your paragraph 1. P2, P3 is basically there. So this is what? This is your basically HTML code. And inside the style, we have just mentioned the CSS part that I have basically shown you over here. Okay. Just see over here what we was doing, that in the style.css file, we was writing these styles separately. And in the HTML, this is how we have linked it. Like we have mentioned href style.css, that is the path of style.css. But over here, what we are doing in the style, just see over here, in the link one over here only, right? So instead of the link, we are just writing the direct style in the HTML file only. Now we have written font family Times New Roman. So it will basically going to look like this. Just see, P is there, class is basically P1. So all of these are paragraph. If I'll be just going to mention over here P, it will just going to apply it on all the paragraph. Okay, let us just mention P2. On the paragraphs, it will just going to apply the same thing. But what we are basically doing over here, guys, okay, like this. So what we are basically doing over here, guys, is that if I want to style each and every paragraph in a different way, so I have given a class to it. The same thing that we was understanding in the this thing previous part. So class is like P1, class is P2, class is P3. So over here P1, P2, P3 is basically there, and we have mentioned different fonts for each and everything. If you'll be just going to run it, you'll be able to see, okay, this was the like H1 heading only, and this is the paragraph shown in a Times New Roman. So this is how it will going to look like. And if you just see, this is again a different form. This is again a different font. All right. So are we guys clear till now, guys? Do you have any kind of a confusion? Guys, do we have any kind of a confusion? Or so let us just do one thing now, guys. Let us just try to jump on box model. Okay, this is the formatting things that you can basically use over here. Now, let me just explain you about the box model over here. Okay, so this is basically our box model. What is box model is? Let us just try to understand. So I have divided it into a story, so you'll be able to understand what is box model and a layout. Okay, so let us just say once upon a time in the land of web villa, there was a humble website named Boxyland. Boxyland has a special way of arranging its content, and it was all thanks to the box model. Like what box model is, this is what we'll be basically going to understand. And after that, what we basically have in the box model, we have something like what are these? Characters are basically there, content is there, padding is there, border is there, margin is there. Now let us just try to understand what is this content. This is the actual information or picture that make up the website pages. All right, the main content that you have. Padding is basically what? Imagine padding as the space between the content and the wall of a room. Like if you'll be just going to, let us just say, apply some kind of a furniture, or obviously you'll be going to mention a space between a furniture and a wall. So that is known as padding. Okay. Now what is basically a border? A border is like the frame of a picture. It goes around the padding. Okay. Margin is what? Margin is the area outside the border. It's like the space between one picture frame and another. So let us just say what a box model basically says. Okay. So over here, let us just say if you have a room, okay, in your house that you want to decorate, the room represent an HTML element like a div. Div is basically what? Div is basically nothing, but it is basically a container. Okay. This is nothing, but div is basically a container. Now, so content is basically what? Over here we have seen, but let us just try to break it down in an easy language. So content is basically nothing. In a room, you have your furniture. So let us just consider that as a content. You bring your furniture content and place it in the middle of the room. So that is basically your content. Now, what is the next? Padding. Padding is basically what? You decide to add some space between the furniture and the wall so that it doesn't look cramped. Okay. Now, if I just talk about border, what is border? Now, to make your furniture stand out more, you decide to add a beautiful frame around it. This frame is the border. Okay. Now, if I just talk about a margin, to be considerate to the other rooms, or basically, I can basically say elements. If I just talk about in a technical terms, in your house, you decide to leave some space outside the frame. The space is the margin. That is basically what a box model is. If you want to create a website, you have to be really sure that each and everything is not like messed up. There should be a proper space, so your website should be more readable. That is the main thing of the box model. Now, if I just show you the code of box model, okay, just see. If I just show you the code of box model, what is basically a box model? Inside a box, like we basically try to create a space. So let us just try to understand with this one. So what we'll be basically going to do over here, guys, in the same HTML file, I have basically mentioned CSS part also. Over here, I'm not linking any kind of a style.css. What I'll basically doing over here, I have added a style, and inside this thing, I'll be just going to mention all the CSS part. Okay, so let me just show you how this code will going to look like. So this is how it will basically going to look like. Let us just say Amazon is basically there. If you'll be just going to open your site, if you'll be just going to open Amazon, so over there you will be able to see proper products. There should be a proper description of each and every product, and there is a proper gapping between one product and another product. You'll be not able to see, okay, this product is basically getting overlapped. So you'll be easily able to you will be easily able to see all the product that is available on the Amazon site. Okay. So this is what a box model is. If your website contain this kind of information, so at that time, what you can basically do, you should always follow a box method that I have just explained you. Okay. So let's just understand this thing now. First of all, this is my body. In this, first I have created one container. So this first div that I have created, this is basically known as a parent div. And all the rest of the div that I have inside this div, these are basically known as child div. If you'll be, let us just say, if I have mentioned it as product container, this is my parent div. So if I'll be going to apply any kind of a style on this div, it will going to apply on all of these, all of the things that is inside this div. The style will going to apply on all of these things. Okay. Now, let us just say this is my parent div and rest of the divs are my child div. So what I have did, I have just created one heading, that is your like product name one, and some description of it. Let's just say this is the price of it. Why I have mentioned strong? It works like a this thing only, bold letter. Okay. Similarly, I have product two, some description of it, and this is the price of it. I have similarly for product three and description of it and the price of it. All right. But what all the things that you'll be able to see over here, because this is just a heading, this is just a like paragraph about it, and this is just a price. But all the style that you will be able to see over here, that is just because with the help of CSS. So let us just try to understand that. Over here, you will be able to see whole body that we have. Whole body basically means this thing, all the things, all the text that is present inside it. We basically going to have a proper format of it. Okay, so font size, font family, we will be going to use these two. And if I just talk about background color, so right now I have selected this one. Okay, just see little pinkish it is. If you want, you can like change it to anything. Let us just say a dark pink, you will be just going to change it to. So you'll be able to see this thing. So this is my background color. Okay, in the body tag, you'll be able to see each and everything is basically there. So we are using that. Now, margin right now we have mentioned for the body, the margin is 0 and the padding is 20 pixels. So the gap between these things are basically 20 pixels. If I'll be just going to increase it, this will even going to increase. The padding is, sorry, basically the padding. Okay, the side by side, this thing. This is basically nothing. This is your padding. That this is space and this is space is basically 20 pixels. Okay, now what is this product container? Okay, this is basically nothing but the class that we have defined over here. This class we are calling this whole div, all the things that is present over here, product container. We'll be just going to use this thing, and what we'll be going to do, display is equal to flex. Now what is basically this thing? Width property over here it is, just wait, I'll be just going to explain you now. So font family is basically there. Display flex. Now, if you'll be just going to see on HTML, there are like different type of displays. But over here, the thing that we are using, that is basically flex. Let me just show you that. Okay, just see. Flex is basically there. These are the different type of properties, values inside your display property. Like inline is there, block is there, content is there. So if you want to execute inline, how the inline will going to look like? It will going to look like this. Okay. Now block, if I just talk about a block one, how it will basically going to look like? It will going to look like this. So right now what we are basically doing, we are basically adding flex over here. Now what is this flex wrap? Let's just say if you have small boxes. All right. So if the product in future will going to increase, let's just say like this, so it will like adjust itself. Let me just show you how. If I'll be just see over here, I haven't mentioned any kind of a this thing over here. Just see if this thing, if this is increasing, if the your width is like decreasing. Okay, just see like this on different devices. If your width is like decreasing or increasing, so what it will do, it will maintain these gap. It will continuously add the next products over here. So that what flex wrap basically used to do. If you'll be just going to mention flex wrap is equal to wrap, that what it is basically going to do. And justify content space between. That means we want a space in between. Okay, the same different values I have just shown you in the PPT. So the one thing we are basically using over here. Now what we have product card. Okay, now what is basically that? That is again a different class inside product container. Product card is basically there, right? So what we are doing over here, just see this thing now. width we basically have. So what we are doing, we are like doing a calculation 33.33 minus 40 pixels. That means all the available width that I basically have, I am just taking the 33.33% of it and I am just subtracting 40 pixels from it. Okay. So I'll be clearly able to see this product over there. Now margin bottom, the bottom that will be in the margin, that will be like 20 pixels. Padding is basically the 20 pixels. What if I'll be just going to do it 40? Okay. So padding will going to increase to 40. Now after that, I basically have border. So border I have given like 2 pixels. If I'll be just going to do 20 pixels. So you'll be able to see, just see this border is basically increasing. So that is basically the border that we have given over here. The border radius should be 8px, the radius that you will be able to see over here. We are not making it sharp, we are like making it round. That is what it is. Okay. Now the shadow we have basically mentioned, the shadow, that a little bit shadow that you will be able to see over here. That is basically the shadow that we are using. Background color, again, we are using this thing. Okay. Box sizing, border box we are basically using. So these are the different values over here that you can basically explore from your end also. Now, after that, we have a product image. All the image that I'll be just going to add over here. For that, I have mentioned these things. Let's just say if I'll be just going to mention this one inside this thing. Okay. Now you'll be able to see this image. Okay. So product image, the width is 100% we are using. The height we are using is, that is 150 pixels. Background image we are using, that is URL. And URL is basically what we are just telling that this is my image. I'm just mentioning the path of my image over here. Okay. Now, even the image radius, we are just see it is not sharp. It is a round image that we are basically using over here. Now, product detail, nothing but margin. We are like mentioning 15 pixels. Product detail that we have, this one. Okay, you'll be able to see these are your product details that we are using over here. Okay, now we have a H2 and heading and P paragraph. So over here we have mentioned margin is equal to 0. So this is basically your box method is. Guys, just see there are like multiple properties with respect to, there are like multiple values with respect to each and every property. All right. So like background size is basically the latest cover we have mentioned for now. So there are multiple things in the PPT. I have mentioned each and everything. So if you want, you can just go and explore it. All right. Now, so let's just discuss about CSS flexbox. What is basically your CSS flexboxes? Okay. Imagine, let us just say you have a bunch of toys and you want to arrange them neatly in a row or a column. Flexbox is like a magic box that help you to organize your toys in a line or a stack. Let me just show you. Okay. Flexbox, if I'll be just going to talk about, right now. This is how it will look like. Flexbox you can consider when you are creating a website like this. Home, about, services, contact and all. At that time, you can basically use Flexbox. So if you have home, about, our services, contacts us, so you can arrange these things in a proper manner. So that is what we are explaining over here. Imagine you have a bunch of toys and you want to arrange them neatly in a row and a column. So let's go through some key concept with examples. Let's just say flex container is basically there. Imagine you have a toy box. Okay, that is basically known as a container that we are using over here. This box is basically your main box where you want to put your toys. A whole box is there and you want to put your toys in that particular box. Okay, so now for that, what we'll be going to use? We'll be going to use container at that time. Okay, display we'll be going to use flex. This makes the box a flex container. That means if you'll be just going to add more toys in it, it will going to adjust itself. That is what it is. Okay, now flex items. Now each toy inside the box is like a flex item. You can have as many toys as you want. That means if you'll be just going to mention this flex, you can add multiple toys in it. That is the advantage of using flex over here. Okay. Now, toy you have basically used flex one. This means each toy will take a equal amount of space. If you have mentioned the flex should be one, that means each and every toy will going to take one space. If you'll be going to mention two, so let us just say it will be going to take the space of two toys. Okay. Now, the third point that we have till now, what we have discussed, that we have a flex container, we have a flex item. The next thing that we have is direction row or column. Like how you will be going to decide whether your toy should be in a row or in a column. So for that, what we'll be going to do, we'll be going to add flex direction, that whether it should be in a row or whether it should be in a column like this. And after that, what we'll be going to do, the fourth point is justify content. Imagine your toys are now fitted perfectly in the box. Justify contents help you decide how to spread them out. Okay, how you can spread them out. So for that, what you'll be going to do, you'll be just going to use justify content space between. The last thing that we have is align items. Sometimes you want your toys to be aligned in a certain way, either at the top, in the middle, or at the bottom. So for that, we'll be going to use that align item should be center. If I just relate it to the real website, let us just say a text is there. Whether you want to align it to the center, maybe to the left, or maybe to the right. So that you can do with the help of align items. Okay. So that is what your flex box is. So let us just try to understand the code over here. What we have did, first we have added a HTML heading, welcome to our website, that you will be able to see over here, welcome to our website. Now, after that, what we have basically did, we have mentioned a nav. Nav is basically what? A navigator. This is basically your navigator, where you have mentioned UL, that is your unordered list. Okay. Now, inside a list, you have mentioned multiple lists, that is home, about, services, contact, and you have closed it. And after that, we have a section. Section is basically what? This thing that we have basically created over here. Section. ID is home. So this is basically nothing but just see, this is one section, this is second section, this is third section, fourth. Like this, we have created a section over here. That ID is home and welcome to our cozy home page. This is what we have basically written over here. You'll be able to see. And after that, what we have, section ID is equal to about. Learn more about our amazing team and our missions. So this is like about us. Similarly, we have did for services, and similarly we have did for contact. Now all the styling that you will be able to see over here, that we have did with respect to the CSS. How we have did it? That is just a body, whole body that we have initially decided that the text should be Arial and this another text, sans serif. All right. Now after that, we have did one thing, that H1 heading. Wherever I am basically having H1 heading, let us just say H1 is basically here, welcome to our website. So that should be in a yellow color. So you'll be able to see, okay, welcome to our website. So you'll be able to see this is in a yellow color. And after that, we basically have headers. Okay, headers we have. What are the basically headers? Just see these things. Welcome to our website. This is basically our header. And in header, what we are basically doing, background color is this thing, light gray, this thing that you will be able to see in the background. This is gray. And after that, color, sorry. Yeah. Text alignment should be center. Padding should be 20 px, that is 20 pixels. The same thing that we have added. Now, navigation bar, if I just talk about a navigation bar, the background color is again this thing. Okay, you'll be able to see black. So the same thing, a navigation bar is basically this navigation bar. Okay, is basically having a background color of black. Padding is 10x. Now, we are talking about UL. This UL tag, that is your unordered list. So what we are doing, style is right now none, and display is flex. So we can adjust the things. The same thing that we have seen in the theory. Now, justify content space around it. I want a space around it. Okay, in this list that I have basically created over here. In this, between these things, I want a space. This is what I have mentioned. Now, if I just talk about this thing, A tag, what is basically this A tag is? Okay, that we are like able to see over here. This is basically nothing but a text decoration we have added over here, that is none. And this thing, the whole thing that you will be able to see where we have written home, about us, our services, contacts us. Okay, now, so after that, what we have did, padding we have mentioned, border radius we have mentioned, and transition we have mentioned. What is this transition? That background color will be like 0.35 seconds. Okay, this transition you will be able to see if I'm moving my mouse. Okay, for some time this transition is basically there. If I'll be just going to increase the time of it. Okay, just see this thing. Now it is like little bit delay. So that is basically known as your transition. Now what is this A dot hover? Let us just say if I'll be just going to hover my mouse like this, only then I'll be able to see it. So that is basically what A dot hover is basically doing over here, where the background color is yellow. Now, if I just talk about a section, padding is equal to 20 px, text align is equal to center. All right. So this is how you'll be able to see all of this thing, that the style that we have basically added over here. All right, guys. So guys, this is it for today's session. Today we have like covered box model, also flexbox. CSS grid is basically there. That will not going to take that much of time. So tomorrow we will be going to cover it. Okay, and transition and animation will be going to cover it, and I'll be just going to show you a project also tomorrow. So guys, do you have any kind of a confusion till now? Okay, yeah. Okay, guys. So we'll be going to discuss each and everything tomorrow now. If I just show you, this is how your box model will look like. So what is the main reason of this box model theory? The main reason is basically if you want to create a website which are going to have a product like this, so you should be able to create a product in such a way so it will be more readable and it will be more visual to the customer. That is the main thing. Okay, that's why we are using multiple terms over here. What are that terms? Just see: content, padding, border, and margin. Okay, this PPT I'll be going to share with you. Just try to go through with this one so you'll be easily able to understand. Box model is nothing but arranging the things in a proper manner. That's it. I hope you are clear. Okay, guys. So rest of the things we'll be going to cover in the tomorrow session. Okay, guys. So this is it for today's session. Rest of the things we'll be going to cover in the tomorrow session. Then bye.